Everybody needs a little bit of time to unwind and relax, take a little vacation, even soldiers in the United States Army. So in this video, we're talking about how time off and vacation time works for soldiers in the US Army. What's up, friends? I am US Army veteran Christopher Chaos, and this is the time of year when a lot of soldiers are taking some time off to go see family for the holidays. So you may be curious, how does that work for soldiers? Maybe you are potentially wanting to go to the Army, or you're just curious about the topic, and that's what we're going to talk about. So first, we'll start off from the very basic level, which is weekends. Now, for the most part, soldiers usually get weekends off. There are some exceptions to that, though, however. So for instance, if soldiers are doing training, maybe on the field, maybe they have duty where they have to sit at a desk for 24 hours, or even certain jobs, they're not going to necessarily get weekends off. There are some jobs in the Army that don't get every weekend off. For example, military police, they have to patrol the streets. You have cooks that work in the DFAC, they still have to cook food even on the weekends and holidays, and then probably a few other ones as well. But for the most part, most soldiers anyways get weekends off unless they fall into that category. For the most part, work happens from Monday through Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday is usually some off time. And then additionally, if there happens to be a holiday, then you also get that as well. So soldiers will get holidays, and then sometimes along with holidays, units will throw in what is called training holidays or Danza days, where maybe if that holiday happens to fall on a Monday, they might also get that Friday prior off to give them a 4-day weekend. That's not always the case, just often there will be units that will do stuff like that. And that essentially just turns a 3-day weekend into a 4-day weekend. But there are other stuff that go kind of along with that. If you have like a 3-day weekend or a 4-day weekend, usually leadership wants to do an inspection on like your vehicle to make sure it works okay, and you have some kind of plan for the weekend, give some kind of safety briefing stuff, and all that usually will be taken care of prior to that 3-day weekend or 4-day weekend. You don't typically have that just over a normal weekend, but some units may be really strict and they do that kind of stuff, but it's not very common. Now, if it's a regular weekend, 3-day weekend, or a 4-day weekend, you still can't really do whatever the heck you want to do. You're still kind of confined to a mileage radius. So for those weekends, whether it be a regular weekend or a 4-day weekend, you're still confined to a 250-mile radius. It means the soldiers can't just go on a spontaneous trip, go on a road trip with their friends. They have to stay within 250 miles of that post. Now, if they would like to go outside of that 250-mile radius, they can do so. You just have to go through the proper channels. For a soldier to go outside of the 250-mile radius, they're going to have to put in for a pass. Commonly, there's some kind of documentation that goes along with that they will request to take this weekend, this 4-day weekend, and be able to take off outside of that 250-mile radius. Now, if a soldier is flagged because they're overweight, they can't pass a PT test, or they've been in trouble, they're probably not going to get approved for that kind of stuff. Typically, this is kind of, a situation where a soldier has to be in good standing with their leadership to be able to be approved for this pass. It's also more common that soldiers are going to use this 4-day pass during times when there's a holiday and they know there's going to be a 4-day weekend. But some soldiers may try to request for a pass when it's just a regular weekend and they want to add Friday and Monday into that pass. It's not very common. Most commonly, soldiers try to coordinate it with a holiday, but that can be a scenario in some cases. So if they are approved for a pass, then they're able to travel outside that 250-mile radius. Now, in that packet they would have had to submit for that pass, it outlines how they're going to get to their destination, where their destination is, probably another POV inspection that is involved, or a copy of their itinerary if they're flying. But they can't go too crazy with this pass. For example, if someone in Colorado was requesting a pass to go to Europe, it's probably not something that's going to get approved. It's got to be something kind of within limits of being able to do that over a 4-day period. Also, something soldiers might do to kind of cheat the system a little bit is sometimes they'll put in a 4-day pass even though they're not leaving somewhere, maybe like around the holidays, so they don't end up on duty, because you have things like, staff duty or CQ where you have to man a desk for 24 hours, and during that vacation time, they have to find people to fill that spot. And if everybody's gone on vacation, they're gonna pull from the people who stayed behind and didn't take vacation. So sometimes soldiers will put in for a 4-day pass during that weekend, even though they're not going anywhere. It's just to try to keep their name off that roster. Also along those lines, a lot of times when they have things like, say, for Christmas, for those kind of duties like CQ or staff duty, that's normally a 24-hour duty, they usually will kind of knock it down a little bit and maybe break it up a little bit to where individuals are only doing like 4-hour shifts. That way someone is still at the desk, but not someone who has to dedicate their entire Christmas to sitting at that desk. That's not really a standard, it's usually just units' personal preference of how they want to do it, but most commonly, units that I've been in, they usually try to figure out some kind of shift work to make it to where a soldier doesn't have to spend that entire Christmas or whatever sitting at that desk. Now let's move beyond pass and let's talk about leave or vacation time. So regardless of a soldier's rank or how much time they've spent in the Army, everybody basically gets the same amount of vacation time. Now, there might be some exceptions to higher ranking personnel, but we're not going to dig deep into certain circumstances. For the most part, soldiers get 2.5 days per month. So they're going to acquire that over time. You can build it up from day one. You start coming in the Army after you've been in the Army for a month. Now you have 2.5 days, and you keep on carrying that over. And essentially equals out to 30 days in a year. And this is paid vacation time. So if a soldier wants to take leave or vacation time, there are forms they have to submit, some safety stuff they have to do, and their leadership is going to look at that, review it, and then bless off on it, sign off on it, or deny it, whatever the case might be. Commonly, units usually have what's called block leave, where they have a set time frame for soldiers to try to take vacation on. If you're trying to take vacation outside of that, then you have to have a good reason for doing it, and there can't be anything really important going on during that time frame. But most commonly, soldiers will take it during a specific time of the year, maybe a couple different times of the year that units have designated for block leave. So now in most common cases for the civilian world, if you want to take vacation, say from Saturday of one week to the Saturday of next week, then all you really have to do is request vacation time for the days you would have normally worked. So if you have a Monday through Friday job, then maybe you're only actually requesting for 5 days of your PTO or your vacation time. For a soldier in the Army, they have to request that entire time. So vacation starts on Saturday, that starts day one of vacation, all the way to the next Saturday. So they will have to actually use up 9 days of their vacation time, because those weekends are going to count, and that also goes along with holidays. If there's a holiday somewhere in there, that is also going to count. Now, like I said, soldiers get 30 days per year, where most civilians only get about 2 weeks depending on their job. Now, I guess since soldiers get 30 days a year compared to the civilian world, that kind of offsets having to use some of your vacation days on like a weekend or on a holiday. But when you kind of put it that way and say that, hey, I have to use 9 days when a civilian would have to only use 5, it kind of sounds like it sucks, but like I said, they get a little bit more days per year than the average civilian does. So if their leave is approved, commonly they'll have that paperwork at what is called the staff duty desk to be able to sign out on leave. Soldiers go there maybe at midnight or later in the day to go sign out on leave. Some units will even allow them to sign out early, like the day prior, but that's not always the case, and technically they have to wait until the actual official day they're supposed to start vacation to actually sign out, and then they take off and go on vacation. Now if they're flying somewhere, then the soldier has to pay for those plane tickets with a few exceptions. Things like when I was stationed like in Korea and I wanted to go on vacation back to California, well, the Army did pay for that flight for me to go from Korea back to California for vacation. But for soldiers, say in Colorado going to California, then they're gonna have to pay for their own flight. The Army's not gonna pay for that. Same goes for if a soldier just wants to take vacation in Europe. The soldier's gonna have to pay to go to Europe. Now, some soldiers will use this thing called Space Available, Space A flights from the Air Force, where you can go down to your local Air Force base and try to get on an available flight if there is one available. But sometimes that can be risky, especially if you're trying to use Space A to fly back to where you're stationed, because you may or may not get on the flight depending on if the space is available. And you're gonna have to go from one Air Force base to another Air Force base, so if you don't live anywhere near an Air Force base, that might not be good for a soldier. So sometimes soldiers will use Space A, maybe you take that to the Air Force base that's near their hometown, but pay for a one-way ticket from their hometown back to their base. But otherwise, soldiers are commonly still just using the regular commercial airlines to get to where they want to go for vacation. Soldiers don't have to fly like in uniform when they're on vacation. I think they're even trying to steer away from that completely. I know commonly the only time you'd ever see soldiers flying in uniform was when they were coming back from like AIT to go home, or they were coming back from a deployment. But I know I've even heard some cases now where they're trying to, stay away from that and make it to where soldiers have to change into some civilian clothes and not travel uniform anymore. But that may not be a, all-wide Army thing that's going on. There may still be some cases where soldiers are traveling in uniform, but not for leave. If a soldier is actually assigned a unit that they are stationed at and they are going home for vacation, for leave or whatever, they will not travel in uniform. They should be traveling in civilian clothes. So as far as the length of time that a soldier can request for leave, it usually just depends on how much they have acquired, but also is going to depend on what the time frame is for that block leave. Usually it's like a week or 2 weeks for the unit. And then in certain cases, like when I was stationed in Korea, we were allowed to take up to 30 days. Even when I was deployed to Iraq, we even got a little bit of time to go back to the States and take a little bit of vacation. I think that one was only 15 days though. So when the leave is over, they have to get back in time before midnight of the last day of their leave, and they're gonna have to go back to that staff duty desk and sign in off of leave. Now, if the last day of your vacation, say, is Sunday, a soldier could technically come back on Saturday, sign in early, and then not be charged for those extra days. But most commonly, soldiers kind of wait till the last minute, spend as much of their vacation as they can, and then sometime later that evening will show up to their staff duty desk to sign back in. Part of that sometimes is paranoia. I know when I was always afraid if I signed in early, someone's gonna find out about it and they're gonna make me come in to work on Sunday to do something stupid. So I'd usually wait until, later in the evening on Sunday to sign back in. So also I feel it may be important to address this in the video. There are some cases of scamming going on the internet. I've heard of several cases and even had some people ask me questions on this where they're maybe talking to someone online and they're saying they're deployed or whatever the case might be, and they have to pay some kind of fee or fine to be able to take vacation, and they want to be able to pay this so that they can come see that person. That is a scam. Don't fall for that stuff. There is no fee associated with taking vacation. If a soldier is taking leave, the only thing they're gonna have to pay for is whatever it is they're gonna go do on vacation, maybe their flight, maybe their gas money, but there is nothing they have to pay to the Army, like a fee or anything crazy. So I will say this, if you ever run into a situation like that where you're talking to someone online and they're trying to get you to send them money, if you don't know that person, don't be sending people money on the internet if you don't actually know who they are. If you met them online and they're asking for money, it's probably a scam. I just wanted to put that out there because I have heard of people asking me and putting stuff on the internet saying that this person was asking for money because there's some kind of, fee that they have to pay to be able to go on vacation and come see them. So don't fall for that stuff, right? Another common type of leave that a soldier may take is terminal leave. Terminal leave is used when a soldier is about to get out of the Army. They'll save up whatever leave they can prior to getting out of the Army, and that just kind of allows them to kind of do all their paperwork, turn around all their equipment a little bit early, and then still kind of collect a paycheck. So for example, in my case, I saved up all the vacation that I could in about a year before I was about to get out of the Army. My separation date was in March, but I was able to save up enough vacation time to where I was able to actually final out of the Army in late January. So in late January, I had all my equipment turned in, everything was finalized and done. Technically, I was still in the Army, but I didn't have to report to work anymore. I sign out on terminal leave, and basically from the end of January to about the beginning of March-ish of when I was actually officially out of the Army, I was still receiving a paycheck from the United States Army. So now technically, because I am still in the Army during that time frame, if I was to get in trouble, get a DUI or whatever, I could still be punished by the US Army. So that essentially is how time off, vacation time, and everything works in the US Army. There are other categories of leave, such as emergency leave when a loved one passes away, maternity leave, and a few other cases and stuff, but I won't really dive too deep into all that stuff. If you want to know more about stuff like that, you can, leave some comments down below and I'll try to answer your comments, or some of my fellow friends that are in the Army or veterans from the Army can help me out and leave some answers to your question. So I hope you enjoyed the video and it gives you some good insight. My question to my viewers though, leave a comment down below of where the ideal place you would like to go on vacation would be. And for my active duty soldiers or veterans out there, leave some comments about maybe some cool places you went to on vacation when on leave. So make sure if you liked the video to hit that thumbs up button because it's the nice thing to do. If you need to kill some more time, you want some more entertainment, maybe check out these guys. There's some cool videos over there, just saying. And if you are not already subscribed to the channel, then you should totally subscribe to the channel. I'm Christopher Chaos, and I will see you next time. See ya.